Hello, my name is Lena. I'm 19 years old and I work at Walmart. This job isn't what I'd call thrilling or even great, but it's a job. And for me, it means getting a little closer to moving out on my own. I've been here almost a year now, and so far it's been what you'd expect. Customers asking where things are, managers going on about restocking shelves, and nights filled with stacking boxes until my arms ache. It was late. One of those night shifts where you feel like you're the only person left on Earth. That's the feeling I always got working alone. I told myself it was peaceful. No one's around to talk to, no managers checking up, just quiet and routine. But that night, something happened that still haunts me. I can't explain it, and maybe I don't want to. It all started like any other shift. My manager had left around 10 p.m., so from then on, I was alone in the store. I had a long list of things to do, including loading a few extra supplies we'd need for the weekend. We had this massive storage room in the back of the store, packed with shelves towering up to the ceiling, all loaded with boxes. The room itself is dim with just a few lights overhead, and it always smells faintly of cardboard and dust. I never liked going in there, but I'd done it hundreds of times, and tonight was no different, or so I thought. I pushed open the heavy metal door and felt the usual chill from the room's air conditioning. I started down the first aisle, checking for the boxes of detergent and cleaning spray on the shelves. They're usually easy to reach, but tonight everything felt off. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, even though I knew I was completely alone. I brushed it off, figured I was just tired, and kept moving. Then I saw it. There was something, a big white shape, toward the back of the room. I froze, staring at it, squinting to make sense of what I was seeing. It was tall, much taller than any person I'd seen, and completely still. My mind scrambled to explain it. Maybe it was a sheet draped over some boxes, or maybe a stack of plastic containers that had fallen out of place. But somehow it didn't feel like that. There was something unsettling about the way it just stood there, unmoving and silent. I wanted to ignore it, but every instinct told me to get out. I backed up slowly, my hands feeling around for the door handle behind me. The room felt colder, or maybe that was just me, frozen in fear. Finally, my fingers found the handle, and I turned it, slipping back out into the store as quickly as I could. My heart was pounding, my breaths shallow and quick. I wasn't about to go back in there. Whatever that thing was, I wanted nothing to do with it. I went back to the main part of the store, trying to calm myself down. I told myself I must have imagined it. Maybe it was just my mind playing tricks on me, making shapes out of shadows. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the image of that white figure standing in the darkness. A few minutes later, I called my friend Jess. Jess worked with me sometimes, and though she wasn't on shift that night, I figured she'd still answer. "Jess, you're not going to believe this," I whispered, even though no one else was around to hear me. "I saw something in the storage room." She laughed, not taking me seriously. "Come on, Lena, are you just bored or something?" "No, I'm serious. There was something. I don't know what it was, but it was big and white, just standing there." Jess paused, and I could tell she was trying to decide if I was joking. "Well, maybe it's just a stack of boxes or some Halloween prop someone forgot to put away. You're overthinking it." I wanted to believe her, but something about that shape just didn't sit right with me. And I decided to call my manager, even though it was late, just to feel a little more sure that I wasn't losing my mind. Maybe he could check the security cameras to prove I wasn't imagining things. Hey. My manager wasn't thrilled to be woken up, but after hearing the unease in my voice, he agreed to log in remotely to view the cameras. I waited in the back office, nervously tapping my fingers on the desk as he checked the footage. I could hear him sigh on the other end of the phone, probably irritated at me for dragging him out of bed over this. "All right, Lena, I'm looking now. When did you see this thing?" "Just a few minutes ago," I said, "in the storage room near the back." There was a long pause as he scanned through the footage. "Lena," he said, sounding confused, "I'm not seeing anyone or anything back there. Just you." My stomach dropped. What? No, that's impossible. I saw something, a huge white shape, just standing there. He rewound the footage, double-checking for me, but the result was the same. I don't know what to tell you, he said, sounding exhausted. There's nothing there. Maybe you just saw a shadow or something. It's late and those lights in the storage room aren't great. Just finish your shift, okay? I hung up, feeling even more unsettled than before. I couldn't argue with the cameras, but I knew what I saw, or at least I thought I did. I returned to the store floor trying to finish my tasks, but every little sound made me jump. The hum of the overhead lights, the occasional creak of a shelf, the hum of the air conditioner. Each one felt louder and more sinister. Around 3 in the morning, I finally finished my work. I kept glancing back at the door to the storage room, half expecting that shape to reappear. But it never did. The rest of the night passed slowly, and I didn't set foot back in the storage room until sunrise. When my manager came in the next morning, he gave me a strange look, half amused and half concerned. "Did you get enough sleep last night?" he asked jokingly. "Yeah," I mumbled, not wanting to talk about it anymore. I knew he thought I'd imagined the whole thing, and maybe he was right. Maybe it had just been a trick of the light, a shadow cast in the dark that my tired mind twisted into something else. But even now, I can still picture that figure standing in the shadows, silent and unmoving, like it was waiting for me. I don't know what I saw, or if I really saw anything at all. All I know is that I'm just glad I made it through that night. And to this day, whenever I'm in the store late at night, I steer clear of the storage room. I don't know what was back there or if it was just my imagination, but I'd rather not find out. Hello, my name is Savannah, and here's a story. It was just past midnight when I pulled into Walmart. I know, strange hour for shopping, but I needed groceries and figured it would be quiet enough to grab a few things without a hassle. I also wanted to pick up some gym gear, dumbbells, and resistance bands, basic stuff. I'd been meaning to get back into shape, and with everything else going on, it was a way to keep things normal. The store was mostly empty, only a few scattered shoppers and the employees stocking shelves. The fluorescent lights flickered in that way they do, the kind of lighting that feels more uncomfortable than anything else. I walked down the aisles, grabbing items as I went, almost forgetting what the time it was, until I turned down the gym equipment aisle. At the end of the aisle, in the shadows just past the racks of weights, I saw a man standing there. He was tall and thin, with wispy gray hair that caught the light strangely. His face was odd, smiling, but it didn't reach his eyes, which had this dullness, almost as if he hadn't slept in days. I almost walked away, but then he stepped forward, a bit closer than I'd have liked. "Hey, do you need any help?" he asked. His voice was gravelly, almost a whisper, and it made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I hesitated. At first I thought he might be an employee, but he wasn't wearing a badge or a uniform, and he definitely looked too old to be working the night shift. Maybe 50, maybe older. It was hard to tell. Something about him felt wrong, like he was out of place. I really don't need any help," I said, trying to sound casual. "Just trying to find some dumbbells for my home gym." He tilted his head a bit, as if he was studying me, and I could feel his eyes trailing over me, lingering in a way that made my skin crawl. Then he leaned closer and muttered,
"Oh, great. Just ignore me then."
The way he said it, and almost in a whisper, but somehow too loud, sent a shiver down my spine. His eyes didn't look quite right. Almost glassy, like he was looking at me, but not seeing me. Could you back up a bit?" I said, forcing a nervous laugh. He didn't answer, just kept staring, stepping closer. I backed away, heart thumping, trying to keep my distance, but he kept moving forward, each step too quick, almost jerky, like he was a puppet on strings. My pulse quickened. The space between us felt tighter, like he was closing in inch by inch. A horrible smell drifted toward me, something rotten, metallic like blood and rust. It made me gag, and I couldn't help but glance over my shoulder, desperate for a way out. My hands started to shake. His footsteps seemed louder, echoing through the empty aisles. The fluorescent lights flickered again, casting long shadows that twisted across his face. "Stop," I managed, voice barely a whisper. "Please, just stop." But he didn't. He kept coming. That strange, vacant smile frozen on his face. His eyes stayed fixed on me, unblinking. My body went cold, and without thinking, I dropped the basket I was holding and bolted. I sprinted down the aisles, past the electronics, the empty registers, out toward the parking lot. I could hear him behind me, those fast, shuffling steps. They were so close, like he was right on my heels. I didn't dare look back. I knew somehow that if I did, I'd see him reaching out for me, his cold hands grabbing at my shoulders. My car came into view, and I fumbled with my keys, nearly dropping them in my panic. His footsteps grew louder, that awful smell closing in, like it was seeping into the very air around me. I forced myself to look, just for a second. He was still there, right outside the automatic doors, watching me. His face was completely still, but his eyes were wide, too wide, like he was stretching them to see me better. I don't remember getting into my car or locking the doors. It was all a blur. I just remember sitting there, staring at him, my heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. And then he smiled. Not a normal smile. His mouth stretched too far, his teeth too pale in the dim light. I grabbed my phone, dialing 911 with shaking fingers. The moment the line connected, he was gone. Just like that, vanished into the empty Walmart parking lot. I stared, half expecting him to reappear, but there was nothing. Just a hollow silence. The police came and checked the area, but they didn't find anyone. They searched through the security footage, but it showed only me, running alone. There was no sign of him, no trace that anyone else had been there at all. I don't know who he was or what he wanted, or how he could vanish like that, leaving only that terrible memory, that smell. All I know is I haven't been back to that Walmart since, and I don't ever plan to. I never liked working the night shift at Walmart, but sometimes you don't have a choice. It was usually just me and John there, covering separate sections in the eerie silence. John would handle the back area around sporting goods and outdoor stuff, while I worked the front near home goods and gym equipment. One night, though, something felt off. The store was dead quiet, and the rows of shelves seemed taller and darker than usual, looming over me like shadows waiting to swallow me up. Around midnight, right as I was restocking some gym tiles, the power suddenly went out. The overhead lights cut out, leaving only a flickering emergency light by the entrance to cast long, pale shadows over the aisles. My radio crackled to life, and I immediately called out, "John, you there? The power just went off." A second of static hissed back, and then John's voice came through, sounding a little distorted. "Yeah, strange. The skies were clear when I came in. Shouldn't be any reason for a blackout." I exhaled slowly, trying to keep my nerves in check. "Well, you're closer to the main breaker, right? Can you check it out?" A long pause stretched out over the radio. Finally, John answered, his voice dropping. "All right, hang tight. I'll take a look. Don't go wandering around." As his radio cut off, I tried to keep busy, feeling the minutes crawl by. But soon enough, an hour had passed, and I hadn't heard back from him. I tried calling again, voice tight with worry. "John, you there? What's going on with the power?" No response. That heavy, uneasy feeling was back, stronger than before. Just as I was about to check on him myself, the radio crackled again. But this time, it wasn't John's voice. A low, hoarse whisper came through, barely audible. It sounded close and yet distorted, like someone speaking from the far end of a tunnel.
"Hello, I see you."
I froze, clutching the radio, heartbeat pounding. "John?" I whispered, almost afraid to breathe. The voice didn't respond, just hung in the static for another beat before fading out. My palms were clammy, fingers shaking, but I knew I had to check on John. I grabbed the nearest thing I could find, a baseball bat from the sporting goods aisle, and made my way toward the back of the store, my shoes scuffing against the tiles. Just as I turned the corner, I saw him. John was there, but he wasn't alone. He was on his knees, his face pale, looking like he'd seen something from his worst nightmares. Towering over him was a man dressed in all black, his face obscured under the shadows, holding a bat of his own, raised high like he was ready to bring it down on John's head. My blood ran cold, but I knew I had to act fast. I gripped my bat tighter, clearing my throat to steady myself, then shouted, "Hey, get away from him!" The man's head whipped toward me, his eyes glowing in the low light, full of a strange, predatory look. Without thinking, I swung the bat with all my strength, aiming straight for his face. The sound echoed through the store as the bat connected, and the man staggered back, falling to the floor with a grunt. I didn't wait for him to recover. I rushed over to John, who was already scrambling to his feet, breathing hard and clutching his arm where he'd been bruised. "Come on, let's go," I urged, pulling him along as we bolted down the aisle, past rows of shelves that seemed to close in around us. We didn't stop until we reached the exit. When we burst outside into the night, the cool air hit us, and only then did I realize just how close we'd come to, I don't even know what. An ambush? A random act of violence? Or something even stranger? I looked back at John, who was shaking his head in disbelief. "I don't know what that was," he muttered, "but one thing's for sure. I'm never taking the night shift again." I nodded, clutching the bat so hard my knuckles ached, and whispered, "Neither am I." We didn't talk much after that, and honestly, I'm not sure I want to know any more about what happened that night. But I know one thing for sure. Something sinister was in that store with us, and it was something I don't ever want to encounter again. It was just another Tuesday evening, or so I thought. The store was quieter than usual, with only a handful of customers left wandering the aisles. I was in the back office, finishing up paperwork, my shift just 15 minutes away from ending. It was my favorite time of the day, the last stretch before I could clock out and head home. The office was small, tucked far away from the hustle and bustle of the store. It was where I handled reports, answered emails, and prepped forms. I had my phone lying next to me on the desk, glowing faintly in the dimly lit room. At 9:45 p.m., just as I was double-checking a form, my phone buzzed. I glanced over, expecting a message from my mom reminding me to pick up milk on my way home. Or maybe Katie, my friend who worked as a cashier up front. But when I read the message, my heart stopped. "Amy, hide. There's a guy in the building with a gun." I stared at the text, my pulse racing. My mind screamed at me to do something, but for a moment, I was frozen. A guy with a gun? In here? My palms grew clammy as I reread the message. Katie wouldn't joke about something like this. I slowly pushed back my chair, my movements careful and deliberate. My office wasn't exactly a fortress. It was a cramped space with a desk, a chair, and a filing cabinet. There wasn't much in terms of hiding spots. My only option was to slip under the desk, so that's exactly what I did. I crouched there, knees pulled to my chest, and tried to steady my breathing. My phone was still on the desk, its screen faintly glowing in the dark. I knew it might give me away, but I didn't dare reach for it yet. Instead, I held my breath and listened. The store was eerily silent, save for the faint buzz of the overhead lights. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, and getting closer. My heart pounded so hard, I was sure the sound would echo through the room. The door to my office creaked open. And I bit my lip to stop myself from gasping. "Is there anyone in here?" A man's voice called out. It was deep and cold, with no hint of fear or hesitation. I clenched my fists, staying as still as possible. The footsteps moved closer. Papers on my desk rustled as he sifted through them. The chair scraped against the floor as he moved it aside. My heart felt like it was going to burst out of my chest. Then came the sound I dreaded most. The cabinet door to my desk opened. My knees pressed harder against my chest and I squeezed my eyes shut. It was pitch black under the desk, but I knew if he leaned down even slightly, he'd see me. My phone was still sitting on the desk, glowing faintly. That light could give me away at any second. I knew I had to act fast. When the man turned away for a brief moment, I shot my hand up, grabbed my phone, and pulled it under the desk with me. The movement was quick, almost instinctive. I didn't think, I just acted. Unlocking my phone, I found another message from Katie. He's in his 50s. Insulted the receipt checker when he walked in. He's heading to your room. Be careful. A chill ran down my spine. He wasn't just wandering the store. He'd specifically come to this part of the building. My fear morphed into pure terror. I couldn't stay hidden any longer. My muscles tensed as I prepared to run. In one swift motion, I bolted out from under the desk and dashed for the door. "Hey!" the man shouted, his voice sharp and angry. I didn't look back. The deafening crack of a gunshot rang through the air. My ears buzzed, but I kept running. Something whizzed past me, followed by the metallic clang of the bullet ricocheting off the filing cabinet behind me. I didn't stop until I was out of the office, sprinting down the hallway toward the main part of the store. My legs felt like jelly, but adrenaline kept me moving. Katie was by the registers when she saw me. She grabbed my arm and pulled me behind the counter. "Are you okay?" she whispered, her eyes wide with fear. I could barely nod, my breathing coming in shallow gasps. My whole body was trembling, and my mind struggled to process what had just happened. Stay. Minutes later, the sound of sirens filled the air. Police officers swarmed the store, guns drawn. Katie and I stayed crouched behind the counter until they gave us the all clear. They found the man near the electronics section, pacing and muttering to himself. He surrendered without a fight. I didn't stick around to see his face. I didn't want to. To this day, I don't know why he did what he did. The police said he seemed mentally unstable, but that explanation didn't make the experience any less terrifying. All I knew was that I couldn't work at the front desk anymore. I quit the next day and took a quieter position in the stockroom, away from the customers, the registers, and especially the late-night shifts. I'll never forget that night. The sound of his voice, the creak of the door, the gunshot. I relive it sometimes in my nightmares. I don't know what would have happened if that bullet hadn't ricocheted off the filing cabinet. I just hope nothing like that ever happens to me, or anyone else again. Walmart is usually the safest place to work. The bright lights, the endless rows of products, and the constant flow of customers make it seem like nothing bad could ever happen there. I'd been working the evening shifts for over a year, and it always felt routine. But that evening was different. It was a Thursday night and the store was bustling as usual. Families were rushing to buy last-minute groceries, and kids were tugging their parents toward the toy aisle. I was in the cleaning supplies section, organizing boxes of laundry detergent. My shift had been uneventful so far, and I was counting down the minutes until I could clock out. That's when I saw him. The man was standing at the end of the aisle, wearing a black hoodie. He had his hands shoved deep into his pockets, and his head was tilted downward so I couldn't see his face clearly. Something about him felt off. His body language wasn't like a regular customer looking for something. He was just standing there, watching. I tried to ignore him and went back to stacking the detergent, but when I glanced up again, he was still there. This time, he started walking toward me. "Excuse me," he said, his voice low and gravelly. "Yes, can I help you?" I asked, trying to sound friendly, even though my stomach was doing flips. "There's a problem in the restroom," he said. "Something's clogged and water's all over the floor. You might want to check it out." Normally, I'd call maintenance or my manager for something like that, but the way he said it made me feel like it was urgent. Without thinking too much, I grabbed my phone and followed him. The restroom was in the far corner of the store, past the electronics section. As we walked, I noticed that the man kept looking over his shoulder, as if checking to see if anyone was following us. I tried to shake off the feeling that something was wrong, telling myself I was just being paranoid. When we reached the restroom, he stopped outside the door. "It's in there," he said, motioning toward the men's room. Okay," I replied, hesitating. I wasn't comfortable going into the men's restroom, but Before I could say anything, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and saw a text from my mom. "Be careful. There's a dangerous man in a black hoodie at Walmart. He escaped from prison nearby." My heart sank. I froze, staring at the text, and then glanced up at the man. He was watching me closely now, as if he knew what I'd just read. I forced a smile, trying to act normal. "Let me just get someone else to check it out," I said, backing away. Before I could take another step, his expression changed. His eyes narrowed, and his lips curled into a sinister smirk. "No need for that," he said. His voice was calm, but there was something menacing about it. Panic surged through me. I spun around and ran. I didn't look back. My only thought was to get to the front of the store, where there were people and cameras. "Hey!" the man shouted behind me, but I didn't stop. I reached the front of the store, breathless, and found one of the cashiers, an older woman named Linda. She had been working at Walmart for over a decade and was known for being calm under pressure. "Linda," I gasped, "there's a guy in the back. I think he's dangerous. We need to call the police." Linda's face turned serious. "Stay here," she said firmly. She grabbed the phone by the register and called for the manager. Within minutes, the manager and a security guard were at my side. I explained what happened, showing them the text from my mom. They didn't waste any time. The security guard headed straight for the restroom, while the manager called the police. I stayed near the register, my hands shaking as I tried to process what had just happened. A few minutes later, the security guard returned. He looked puzzled. "There's no one there," he said. "What do you mean?" I asked. "He was right there." The security guard shrugged. "The restroom is empty. We checked everywhere." I felt a chill run down my spine. Had he escaped? Was he hiding somewhere else in the store? That's when the security guard held up a piece of paper. "We found this on the sink," he said. He handed it to me, and my stomach dropped when I read the words scrawled in messy handwriting. "You got lucky this time." The rest of the night was a blur. The police arrived and reviewed the security footage, but the man had somehow slipped out of the store without being seen. They assured me they would do everything they could to find him, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he was still out there, watching. For days after the incident, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his smirk and heard his voice. I replayed the moment over and over in my head, wondering what would have happened if I hadn't gotten that text in time.